Ah, hey,
Boo.
there was my face. Woo!
Hi, Tammy.
Hey, Nate, how are you? My face. I got a little sunburn this weekend.
That happens when you're out.
Yeah.
Welcome, folks, to the Off-Road Insiders podcast. What is this, episode 26, right?
Yes, 26. It's been a year. We've been doing this for a year.
Yeah, it was.
It was
I got to
June.
look up the date for the first episode, but it
Yeah.
was June. I think it was June we started. So it's been a little over a year. We've made it past the year mark.
We did. Isn't there a saying about if your business makes it, not like we're a business, this is just our little hobby, but if your business can make it for the first 2 years, it'll be a success? I don't know. Something like that.
So you're saying if you're stubborn, you can be successful?
Yes. Just keep pushing forward.
Well, I don't know. We made it through a year. It's 2 years. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I have no
Yeah.
intention of stopping, but you never know,
No.
right?
Life sometimes gives you little curves in the road that you're not expecting.
Yep.
Turns. You go
I
down a different path.
hear your curves involve a Jeep again, though.
Yes.
Which I don't know if you intended to talk more about in the main topic, but Tammy's
Yeah,
got a
I'm
Jeep that
gonna.
moves and drives again.
Yes, I'm gonna do a little backtracking on just give a little history of it, and then share the latest on my engine swap.
Cool. Well, I have been hard at work cutting brackets off of that.
The
Ford
axle.
Super Duty Dana 60.
Yeah.
It's enough work that I think if I just focused on it for a whole day, I could just knock it out. But I don't know.
Who has a whole day?
Well, I could take like a Saturday or something and get it done, probably. But like a combination of plasma cutter and grinders and whatever. And I just have it on jack stands. I don't have like tall axle stands, so I'm kind of like hunched over it, and at my age, the back is not as happy with that as it used to be. And it's been hot, right? And when I'm cutting and grinding, a lot of people, they just throw caution to the wind. I've got a mask I wear, and I wear a respirator because I don't want to breathe that crap in, and I have ear protection on that's not too dissimilar from these headphones. I just picked up some new ones that look like shooting ear protection.
Range when you're at the range.
Yep, they look exact. In fact, they're actually made by an outdoors company, but they're also rated for this sort of work. But they have Bluetooth in them, so I can listen to a podcast or listen to music or whatever. That's why I got them. I had like legit shooting, like the big bulky shooting ear protection that I used to use, and it was hard to use along with the grinding mask that I picked up. But so yeah, I've been working on that, but it gets hot because I have all that stuff on, and then I have like a denim coat that I put on so that if like sparks fly or whatever, I don't get burnt.
Burning yourself down.
I've got so many like little scars all over my arms and my legs from all the years when I would do things like welding and cutting and grinding and working on Jeeps in like a tank top and shorts that I've decided in my older age, it just isn't worth it.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Sure.
So at any rate, it gets really hot, which is why it's another reason I haven't really spent the whole time, like a whole day on it. And it's tedious work. It's like, cut a bit, grind a bit, try to grind this weld off, try to grind that weld off, and then you're working in like these weird positions, and yeah, it gets old quick, but it's getting there. I have most of the passenger side bracketry gone, and I'm probably 3/4 of the way through the driver's side, which is the harder side because it's more cramped on that side because you have the differentials offset to the driver's side.
Yeah.
So it's like in the way and everything. So
how many brackets were on there?
Well, the Ford uses, I think they call it a Y-link or a radius. It's a radius arm. Uses a radius arm, but it's like this big bulky thing, and it goes to these two big bushings on the axle housing. So there's like these two Mickey Mouse ear looking things on either side where the bushings are that the that the radius arm attaches to. And I have no intention of using the factory mounts, and the truss that I bought requires all that be gone. You need basically like a clean housing. So on the passenger side, it's all plated steel that you can just kind of either cut with the plasma cutter, or if you can get the welds off, you can knock it off with the hammer. On the driver's side, it's cast into the pumpkin.
Oh,
So you have to like cut around it and then grind it smooth. And you're not going to damage the pumpkin as long as you don't cut too far, but it's a lot harder to cut through than it is on the other side, where it's just like, I don't know, it might be 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch steel on the passenger side. So it's really not that hard to cut off. But on the driver's side, it's just like this, it's a bear of a job. So, but that's what I've been up to.
well, I was gonna save what I've been up to for our main topic of the show. I don't know if you want to get right into that.
Can certainly do that. But first, don't forget,
Exactly.
folks, if you want to watch us live, you should find us on YouTube. If you're here right now watching us live, then thank you. We appreciate you. Make sure you like the video. And if you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. If you want to find out where to watch us or find us on social media, go to offroadinsiders.com or just find us on Instagram. If you want to contact us via the old school emails, offroadinsiders@gmail.com.
Isn't that kind of ironic? Old school.
Yeah. Working in the industry that I work in, I had a conversation with my boss at my last job. This might be a decade ago already. And the conversation was around, when do we think the industry is going to stop using email? And it seemed like almost unfathomable at the time. But there are people. Donald Trump doesn't have an email address. Never has. Because he
Really?
decided that it was not an efficient way to communicate. And I think he also said it's because they're too easy to trace. So that gives you some idea.
Yes.
Yes. His intentions. But even as a businessman, he says he never had an email address. He's never had one.
Interesting.
I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard.
Well, I mean, right now, excuse me, I feel like most of my email is just junk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big problem.
90% of it is junk.
Yeah, and it's been that way for a very long time. And I could talk for hours about why that is, because one of my jobs, when my last job, was to manage email for a small liberal arts college. So I know a whole lot about email and trying to stop spam, and I have scars. They're big and deep.
You have scars?
But anyway, this isn't an IT podcast. This is an off-roaders podcast. But just know, folks, that every email you get, there's someone like me at the other end or in the middle making sure that the delivery worked. And it's a thankless job. But anyway, I did want to, before we got into the main topic, we usually have the community corner. This one's a little bit of a downer. I know we're a little late to this party because I shouldn't call it a party. We're a little late to this announcement because it happened, I think, the week of our last show. Mm-hmm. And that is that Allison Parliament, which, if you don't know who that is, she's the founder, if you want to call it that, of the Duck Duck Jeep movement or craze. She's passed away. And I don't know. I don't see a lot of details online. I'm respecting the family's privacy. I don't want to go dig and go into wild conjecture, which a lot of people are. But suffice to say, she's passed away. The family says it was sudden and unexpected, and that's about as much as they've released. Happened June 25th, I think I saw in the article that I was refreshing my memory on before our show. And I've got that linked in the community corner here. So if you didn't know, she passed away. It's very sad. You know, I mean, it's sad when anybody passes away, but for someone to be so active in this community, and young, yes, how old was she? I know she was.
Was she in her late 20s? Maybe I'm not sure.
I was only estimating. I didn't look to see what her age was, but I thought she was in her 20s or 30s. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's really a shame.
And you know, a lot of people were posting that she had died, and some people were like making snarky comments, and I'm like, really? whether you like ducking or
Yeah.
not, it's
Whether you liked the phenomenon or not, uh, it the whole movement had a positive energy behind it. It
mhm.
was meant to be fun. It was, there were so many people that just loved it, kids. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
I came
Kids
across
love it.
a lot of posts from folks that were saying exactly that. I didn't get it. I don't care about the duck thing, but my kids just loved it. And I'm kind of
Mhm.
in that boat, right? Like I don't care if someone left a duck on my Jeep. I wasn't leaving ducks on people's Jeeps, but my kids were like so excited about it.
Yeah. So many kids out there love
Yeah.
doing it. So, well, condolences to her family
Yeah.
and very sad. Very
Yep.
sad.
Yep. So yeah, I
No,
guess leave a duck in her memory, even if you're
yeah,
not into the
into
into
the
the
whole
duck
thing.
thing. So it's funny. My older daughter was recently at church camp just 2 weeks ago, and for whatever reason, they've picked up a theme of rubber ducks. Like they don't, not because of the Jeep thing, just in general, because they think they're cute, they
Oh,
think they're funny
yeah.
or whatever, right? And there was a girl there who knitted a bunch of ducks,
Oh, geez.
and they handed them out. She came home with a knitted duck.
So back when my kids were in elementary school, so that would have been probably 15 to 20 years ago, those rubber ducks, we had boxes of them because the teachers gave them to the kids as good behavior rewards.
Oh, that's cool.
And so my kids like, "Oh, we love these ducks," and they figured out where you could buy them at Oriental Trading, and
Mm-hmm.
so they were buying the army ducks and the night ducks, and so we had ducks long before just because my kids loved to collect them.
We bought a bag of 50 fortune cookies from Oriental Trading once, my sister and
Oh,
I,
there
when
you
we were
go.
kids. We
Yep.
just had like a, and it was just a big bag. It was like a garbage sack full of
There's probably, like, only
fortune
5
cookies.
5 different fortunes in there.
Yeah, and then we split it in half. We each got 25 fortune cookies.
Mhm. Kids love that kinda stuff.
Ah,
So, my Jeep saga.
yeah, and you went somewhere, and you have a
Yeah.
Jeep bag. So I guess start wherever you want. But
Well, I was gonna
yeah,
start with little history. My check engine
sure.
light had been on for 4 years. It was a misfire number 6, and my Jeep would tick, 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 tick. That was the engine sound like, and I came
Mm,
here to Cheyenne, and I'm working at a TNT Customs and auto repair shop as well. And so the guys come across stuff all the time. And I had been thinking about, God, I'm going to have to get a Jasper remanufactured engine. It's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And so the guys came across a 3.6. So I did the infamous 3.6 engine swap because that's so popular.
yeah,
um,
yeah. Usually, when someone takes a
right. It's like
3.6
a
out of a Wrangler,
yeah.
it doesn't go back in with
No,
another
it's an
3.6.
LS or a
It goes
Hemi.
to
But I will say mine is a Dodge Ram 3.6 swap.
yeah.
So, anyway,
I don't know if they're at their core if they're any different
no,
than
they're
the Jeep
not, but it
3.6.
it
I'd imagine they
sounds
aren't.
it sounds better.
You
S
have a truck engine in there now.
right. I have a I have a Dodge Ram engine. So anyway, we did all that. We put new timing chains on, new dormant or oil filter housing, blah 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 blah. So the guys, it takes a little longer than normal because they're doing it in between
Yeah.
working on real customers' vehicles. So we finally got it going. And if you go onto my social media sites, you can see some of the reels as they're putting it together. And so we finally get it together last week, I believe, or the
We
week
talked
before
about it,
that.
I think,
Yeah.
on our last show. You said
Yes.
that it had started for the first time, but there was still some
Yes.
stuff to button up.
Yep. So we started it. It ran. He did this whole little where you pulled the fuse of the fuel pump and blah 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 because it had been sitting for so long, so it was
Hmm.
dry, and you want the oil to
You
get it in
wanna
there.
you like crank it a few times with no fuel so the oil can
Yeah.
circulate, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we did that, and then finally we got everything ready, and the check engine light came on again. And it was just some cooling fan thing, which when it's all apart, sometimes the connectors aren't in all the way and
Mhm.
things. So he fixed that. Everything's fine and dandy. So then I drive it home. The next day, I started up and I'm getting ready to go to work, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't like how my steering wheel was positioned." The guys had moved it up a little, so I took it and lowered my steering wheel, and like 10 seconds later, the check engine light came on. I'm like, "Oh no!"
Moving the steering wheel did it.
I know, and they're all laughing at me. And so it was a oil pressure sensor. So we thought, oh, we'll get a new one because we just took the one from my engine and put it in there because they were still working.
Mhm.
So we got a new one from the Jeep dealer, put it in, everything's fine. The next morning, I go and I start it up and I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to my radio since I got my new Jeep. I turned it on, boom, 10 seconds later, check engine light again. Same code. And so they're like, oh, it's, and I had, then I started watching my oil pressure. Everything's fine. It's at normal levels. So then, and then all of a sudden it went away and it was fine. So I'm like,
Okay.
okay. So, but when it went away, Daniel, the mechanic, he thinks it was the Dorman oil filter housing, and he can explain this way better than I, comes with its own oil filter. And something they've apparently exactly what, but he thinks that oil filter is not up to par for the
Okay.
Jeep. So we're gonna do an oil change and put in a Napa Gold filter in there.
It's not possible that the computer is sort of relearning or whatever because of the new engine? I
Maybe.
don't know if
I
that's
don't
a
know.
like,
I
I
don't
know
know.
that the Jeep 36 has a lot more intelligence in the computer than even the computer that I'm so angry at in the 4.0 from time to time.
Mhm.
And it makes me wonder, but I would think that the folks at TNT would know better
Yeah.
than I would. I've never done a 3.6 swap. I've never even really looked into what it takes to do that, so
And it could be some sort of connector is jiggling
yeah?
because every so we're gonna try the oil change and see. I mean, it's off right now. So, what is the first thing you should do when you get a new engine?
Well,
Just
I mean,
take it.
there's a crazy break-in procedure, I'm sure, that
Right.
you're supposed to follow, which involves, like, running to this many RPMs for this long and that many
Mhm.
RPMs for that long, but, I'm guessing you didn't do that, though.
Well, I probably got it up to so many RPMs. I actually Wednesday, we left from Cheyenne to, up near Deadwood, South Dakota, in the Black Hills, um, for a TNT 605 Jeeps. That's a Jeep club up in South Dakota. 605 is the area code. It was a Jeep event. And so we shut down the shop and um what was it? Bob and Mary and their son Jason were up there. And then the two mechanics and our bedliner guy and myself, we all drove up there for an event. And I was working the event. Everybody else was kind of like just chilling because I went up there mainly to get videos of all the Jeeps on the trails.
Mhm.
So Thursday morning, I get up and I'm like expecting to hop into one of the beefed up rigs. And Bob's like, nope, you're going to take your Jeep on the trail. And I'm like, oh my God.
I just got it
He-
back.
I know. He's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Um, so it was actually they rate the trails up there in the Black Hills. It's the national forest. They rate the trails 1 to 10. And we've talked about trail ratings before on I can't remember what episode it was. Um,
One of
but
the early
the
ones.
yeah, 4 so we went on a number 4 rated trail, the first one, and that was called oh shoot, Full Size. The name of the trail. They have all sorts of trails out there. It's so many of them. But the trails actually reminded me a lot of AOAA and Roush Creek, the ones we were on. I went on one that was like, I didn't drive it, but I was there with folks that was pretty serious. Um, but a very similar terrain to Roush Creek and AOA, rocky, lots of pine trees or firs. forested, lots of scraping, turning. So anyway, I was pretty excited to wheel my Jeep. It did just fine. Um, but my job was to get reels and some video. So I didn't get really a whole lot of pictures of my Jeep. Here's the entrance to um full size trail. You would just make a turn and you're down. A lot of the trails are like washouts, when the water runs off, it creates a little creek. They're not
Hmm.
normally creeks except for when the
Yeah.
snow melts. So they
Right.
change all the time and there's big rocks and ledges and that kind of thing. But yeah, here is my Jeep. Um, a 9-year-old girl took this picture for me. And then here's another one. Just, you can kind of see the terrain there.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we did that trail. My Jeep was doing just fine. Um, and then we stopped and I didn't wheel this next trail. It's called Hal John's. I think my Jeep might have been able to do it, but I was there to get videos, so I did that.
Hmm.
But on the
It's it's
go
harder
ahead.
to get video
Oh,
if you're driving, even if you're not leading, right? But
yeah.
if you have to pay attention to driving your own vehicle, then yeah, it's harder to get video. So I
And
can
I didn't
understand that.
Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of pictures either because I was actually holding. It's funny because there was this guy wheeling. He works for WCCO TV, which is a Minneapolis TV station. He's a news photographer, and so I had my phone, and I'm shooting it like this, just
Did he
up and
yell at you?
down, vertical. Yeah, and then I had my video camera, and I'm holding them both. And this guy pulls up next to me as I'm outside videotaping. He's like, "Hey, can I give you some advice? I'm a news photographer." And I'm thinking, "Okay,
Sure, why not?
sure." He goes, "You should turn your phone so it's this way, so so you get
Uh-huh.
the TV." And I like, "Oh yeah, I'm a news photographer too. I know that, but I'm getting reels." And he's an older gentleman, so I
He's
wanted to
like, "What's a
say,
reel?"
yeah, he's probably like has no idea. So I
Yeah,
was trying to do both because
yeah. I was
it's
adamant for years that all footage should be recorded in
yes,
horizontal view,
yes,
right? But you're right with reels. I mean, there's a reason that we format our
right,
stream this way now because people watching on mobile expect it to be vertical.
yep,
How many times are you watching YouTube on your phone and you're like, oh, no, I got to turn it, right?
yep,
So you can get a better view. Well, if you just record it vertical, then it has a better look. But to old folks like us,
yes.
it looks wrong.
It is. It's very hard, but if you want to stay relevant, you have
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
And
yeah. I feel like YouTube videos should remain in landscape. That's the word I'm looking for, in landscape
landscape,
mode.
and
But
we're
yeah,
in
for shorter stuff like reels
we're
and
in
whatever,
portrait,
then
yeah.
the vertical format really does make more sense.
So I was, it's hard to do reels and landscape and take pictures. So I was trying to do the best I could. So
You
anyway,
know
I
what
had
you
a
might be able to do, and I don't want to derail you.
no, go.
My camera that I use for recording in the garage, I got it's from a company called Small Rig, a little frame that the camera sits in. And the reason I did it was so it had more attachment points for things because I have a wireless mic that I plug into the camera and then I can
Uh-huh.
wear. But then there's no place to I don't know, attach a mount for a phone, for example, right? Because with the
So it'd be
gimbal that I
cool
have,
if
it
you could
uses a
have
phone, right?
it would be cool if you could have a mount that sits
Yeah,
your camera.
right. So
Maybe
I
we
don't want
should
to dig it all
invent
out.
that.
I don't want to dig it all out to show you, but basically, I have a DJI gimbal that I had gotten through some reward points that I got for work from work,
Mhm.
right? $500 freaking gimbal. Can you believe how much gimbals cost?
Wow,
It's a
that's
nice gimbal. It does
crazy.
some really cool stuff. But you can take your phone and mount it in this pressure. It's like a same phone mount you'd put on your dash, right? But it
Right.
clips into a cold shoe on your camera. So in order to do that, plus the little receiver for the microphone, I needed more than one cold shoe on the camera, and most cameras only have one cold shoe. Well, you only need the one, right? If you just get the phone mount, you could put your phone in portrait mode and then record with the camera, right? And then you'd
Mhm.
have both in one and just have to hold one device, right?
Yes.
So you should look into that.
I'll have to get a
Probably work
link
better.
from you. Yeah.
I mean, just buy the whole gimbal and it'll come with the phone mount. You'll be good to go.
Okay, there you go.
Maybe don't do that. I'm sure you can find the phone mount by itself.
um So it was a long event. They have this event every year. It's called Rockfest, and then whatever the year is. Great bunch of folks, lots of trails out there. It is actually you wouldn't expect to hear like there's hardcore wheeling going on in South Dakota, but I think anywhere there is like mountains, you're gonna have
Yeah.
good trails.
I've heard good things about the terrain in that region.
Hmm.
So I've never seen it, never been there, obviously, but
Yeah, it gets up
sounds like it would be
to,
good for
I
wheeling.
think the highest peaks are about 9,000, so it's comparable to the Appalachians.
Hmm.
I don't know about the mountains in Pennsylvania.
And
I
is
don't
that I'm trying to remember, is that
it's
area
not
also known for coal, or was it something else that there was some resource that was mined out of that area?
gold,
Is it gold?
definitely
That makes more
gold.
sense.
Yeah, and it's like just it's an anomaly. It's an anomaly because South Dakota up until that point is plains, flat farming land, and then there's this little mountain range that popped up. Um, because then there's the Black Hills, and then you got the plains again of Wyoming, flat until you get to the Rocky Mountains. But it's a beautiful area. Mount Rushmore is there, which, by the way, I got to show you this. Um, we stopped by there. You can see the presidents all in the back.
Oh,
There's a picture of
nice.
me. Yeah.
I've never seen Mount Rushmore. I really need
Yeah.
to do that someday.
There's a really cool scenic route going down from near Custer, South Dakota. Lots of history in the Black Hills, lots of history. Um, where you go up the mountains and there's these like tunnels in the mountains, and they're positioned perfectly to where the first tunnel you see the president's heads are like this big, like about, they look like about an inch. And then the next tunnel they get bigger as you get closer. So that was kind of cool. We saw some mountain goats, didn't see any buffalo. So but what I wanted to share, and this is a really cool thing, and we're still in the process of finishing this trail fix. Um, so our mechanic, he has I think it's a Ranger, a Ford Ranger. I think that's what Nick has. Anyway, and this is a good topic, like we could discuss it. Is he has a spare tire for it because I think he has 35s or 37s. I don't remember, but he left the spare on his trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I have talked about this before. Um, and a lot of so he popped a bead, but we were able to get that fixed. And then all of a sudden he slashed the back of the tire, like probably got a 6-inch gash in it,
Ugh.
and it was dead.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh, we either have to drive someone all the way back to the campsite to get a new spare, or we could do a fix, or maybe someone else out there had a spare to put on that would fit his vehicle. So anyway, and here's a picture. We are sewing this gash. You can see there, Bob. Nick is the one in the hat. And what he's doing is he's punching holes along the gash, and he's using some sort of wire, not as hard as baling wire, but a little less, but it's stainless steel. And you kind of have to sew it. While we were doing that, trying to fix the tire, somebody else realized, oh, you could use my spare tire. It was off a Jeep. They match. So we did that. So we never
There's
really
always a simpler solution. You come up with
right,
this crazy way to fix it. You're like, this is going to be awesome. We're going to have a
right,
great trail story. And then some guy's like, hey, I've got a spare. You can just
correct.
use it.
So the cool thing, and our bedliner guy who was out there with us, he was like, that is the coolest thing about off-roading is where everybody comes together and
Mm-hmm.
brings their parts. Like we're like, does anyone have, like a big file or something sharp? And someone's like, oh, I have this, or I have a tire repair kit. And so, and like, oh, I need a vice grip to pull the wire through, like the needle and thread, and then I'm trying to find, this is a really good, I'm looking at my phone for what this was called again. One of the guys had this, where is it? Here it is. It's this tire repair kit. It's called Glue Tread.
Okay.
And it's like $99, but it's basically like the tire, when you do tire plugs and like a
Mhm.
super glue and you mix it together. So once we're going to finish sewing that tire up, you plug it, like tons of tire plugs in all the
Mhm.
holes, and then you would spread this patch glue over it, and we were going to fill it up with the air, and that's how we were going to get him back up the trail. But a guy in a Jeep had a spare, and so he put
Yeah.
it on.
See, this is my argument for folks who leave their spare on the trailer.
Right.
How much time are you going to waste drilling holes, sewing, tire plugging, and gluing a tire
But it would
when
be
you
fun.
when you could have just put your spare tire on that you did bring with you, you just left on the
Right.
trailer? Like to me, that's not a compromise I would make.
Yeah.
Now,
No,
if you had already cut a tire and you had your spare on, and then
right.
you cut another one, sure. Now you're like, well, I either have to deal with that flat tire or this flat tire, right? And then you pick which one's easier to repair, and you do a trail fix. But bring a spare. I get the weight savings thing, but
Well,
to
and
me, it's like bring a dang spare. You're not in a competition here.
some of these folks, their rigs were like, they're 2 doors,
Hmm.
and they have like the skinniest rear bumpers, and they really don't
Yeah.
have a spot on
No,
the
I
back
know. I
of the
get it.
Jeep. And it actually, sometimes it's worse for your departure angle to
Hmm.
have all that on. So,
You
there is
you
that
mount it
argument.
in the bed, or you make some other accommodation and bring it with you. For a trail rig needs a spare. A competition rig, maybe not. You got me there. Competition rig, it's all about the weight savings. You choose a spare or don't choose a spare. I'm not going to judge you for that. But a trail rig, I think, needs a spare. That's just my opinion. People will disagree with me, I guarantee.
Well,
Videos in the chat will probably disagree with me
yeah,
because
there you
it's
go. I'm missing out on the chat because I'm over here in the pictures. So anyway, I posted that video, that reel on TNT's site, and of course, everyone is saying, "Oh, how come you didn't show the finish because it didn't work or whatever?" I'm like, "No, we didn't finish it because we didn't need to." And everybody's like, kind of, has a comment to make. So
yeah.
as soon as Nick gets back, Nick and I are gonna finish sewing that tire. We're
To
gonna
show that it
put
worked.
put the goop on, and we're gonna fill it with air, and we're gonna show is gonna work. So stay tuned, and I'll let you know if it filled it with air. And some people in the comments were saying, yeah, they've had to do that kind of repair before.
I wonder
So
if that would be really hard to do on the trail. It just made me think if the carcass of the tire is cut, I wonder if you could like fit an old school tire tube in there and inflate that just to get you out,
right.
you know, or a patch kit, not a plug kit, but the old school patch kits that use that gummy glue with an actual physical rubber patch. But again, you'd have to get inside the tire to do that.
Right.
Otherwise, the air would just blow it back off the outside. And unseating a bead on the trail is probably just as much work as what you were just describing with
Hmm.
punching holes and sewing it.
Yeah, here it is again. Bob he took the tire, he's holding one of those tire reamer things,
Yeah.
and he's punching it in.
Yep.
So it was actually, I find it interesting when you're doing all these different kind of repairs because you're going to learn. So if
I mean,
something ever happens to you,
it sounds like that would work, right? So I'm not going to say like why would he do that? Obviously,
he's done
he
it before.
yeah, he had the idea. He probably knew it was going to work. It sounds like it would work. It sounds like it may have the possibility of having a slow leak, but it's a lot better than a big gash in the tire that will hold no air,
Mhm.
right? Having to put air in every half hour or something is better than having to put in air every 38 seconds.
Right.
if you get it to hold
No,
any air at
and
all, right?
it's the point is to get it off the
To get them off
trail.
the trail, right? But
So,
to me, it's like, well, you had the spare. You should have had it with you.
yeah, poor Nick. Yeah, he was not having a good day
Yeah.
that day. And I think he burned out his clutch. He had just put a new clutch in.
Oh, wonder if it was
Yeah.
misadjusted or something. They shouldn't really
So,
need adjustment anymore. I guess it depends on the drivetrain setup, but
yeah, it was not a good day. So anyway, that was my adventure. My check engine light. Let's see, that was the first day. The second day I wheeled again. It was fine. The third day I wheeled again. But the third day I was taking the bypass. There was a bypass that zigzagged across. I want to call it a creek bed, but it was the washout bed for the melting snow. So I would get out, or I would drive up as far as I could and wait for them to come to me and take videos. But that day, my check engine light went on that morning. I'm like,
hmm.
oh. And we ran the code, and it was the oil pressure sensor. Um, and somewhere along the way, on my way back from South Dakota to Wyoming, it just like randomly went off. So we are going to change the oil, get a new oil
Yeah.
filter, and go from
To
there.
to me, that sounds like it's right on the margin of where the sensor trips or doesn't trip.
Hmm.
And under certain circumstances, it thinks it's low, and under certain circumstances, it thinks it's fine. So you're probably fine. I wouldn't ignore it, but you're
Right.
probably okay. And the oil filter is not it's really not a bad place to start. If the filter, you know, if it's too restrictive, let me think. If it's too restrictive, it would make the oil pressure seem high. If it's not restrictive enough, it could make it seem low. The other thing would be like the oil pump, right? If the oil pump is failing, or if the oil pump, because I guess that would have come with the rebuild engine. Unless you replaced the oil pump when you did all this work,
I'm
it could be
trying to
the oil
remember
pump is
if
the
I did or
problem.
not. I can't remember if we did or not. I think we
That'd be
did.
but that'd be the next thing to go to. If the filter doesn't do it, then the oil pump I think would be the next thing.
But I've been watching my oil pressure, and it's right where it's supposed to be, or like averaging 40 psi, which
Yeah,
they say that's about what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah. And you said you replaced the sensor already, so it's not just that the
Hmm.
sensor's misreading.
Right. Unless we got another bad sensor.
Yeah, wouldn't that be luck?
Yeah.
That or there's some weird short somewhere. But I think the code may be different if it was that it got no reading from the
Hmm.
sensor, or that it detected a short instead of the reading from the sensor. I think it'd be a different code. I could be wrong, but
We'll find out.
because
So
I've
anyway,
I've seen that before with a bad sensor. It'll say something that sounds more like an electrical problem than
hmm,
a reading problem. But sometimes they're indistinguishable. It'll sound like a reading problem, and it's actually just an electrical problem.
but it feels good to have my Jeep back and to be
Oh, I
able
bet. I
to
bet.
wheel again. I mean, I last summer I did the Oregon Trail, which is, basically 2-track. That was nerve-wracking, like, waiting for my engine just to, like, poop, die.
Oh yeah, you
Um,
had you were having the issues while you were
yeah,
doing the Oregon
yeah,
Trail. I remember you telling me about that.
yeah, so yeah, but it felt good to be out wheeling again. I did the second day I did a trail that was a 6, um, which was really I forgot how intense climbing over rocks can be because 'cause it's been a while.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a good time. So in comparison, they say the Rubicon Trail is a 10. Um, and I guess you could compare some of the trails kind of like, what is it? Cemetery? It's a red trail at Roush Creek. I've
Okay.
done that. I think it's a red trail or is it a black trail? Um,
Well, red they usually, at least at
no, I think
AOAA,
it's a
red
black.
is usually like buggy only.
Yeah, I think it's a
I don't
black
know
at
about Rush
Cemetery.
Creek.
Um, but yeah, so kind of like that stuff we did on Black W, but longer, more instead of just a short little trail.
Hmm.
So now I can check off another state I've wheeled in. think I'm up to 12 states.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So, is how long has Rockfest been going on? Like, is this new?
Oh,
Is this a
oh,
longer
it
running thing?
yeah, over 10 years. Around 10 years, maybe longer. I am not actually sure. I didn't get into those details.
Is it run by like a local club or something?
Yep, 605 Jeeps. There's a
Oh,
bunch
you
of
did say
Jeep
that.
yeah, there's a bunch of Jeeps up there, Jeep clubs, Black Hills Jeep Club, 605 Jeeps, and there was a lot of people from Minnesota there. So we all reminisced about our home state.
Was
Um,
there anything cool about the event itself, or was it just go out on the trails and have a good time? Was there
Going on
like
the
a
trails, we had, 2 of the nights were catered. We were a sponsor, T&T was a sponsor.
hmm,
So we had chicken and brisket with fixins one night, and the other night we had pulled pork. And then they had raffles, and actually there is a Jeep that is being, raffled off, and I think you can buy tickets online. It's Crawl for the Cure,
okay?
and, I don't know how much longer it's going on, but they brought that Jeep there. Some of our parts are on there, and I think maybe Metal Cloak and a bunch of other different companies. I should have researched this better. Anyway,
I put you on
they
the spot by asking.
yeah. No, that's fine. So anyway, they're raffling off that Jeep. You could win it. Um,
That's cool.
yeah, so Crawl for the Cure if anyone wants to go check that out. And then, um, I had the best, part of the event, I think. So at TNT, we started doing a blog. So I've been writing blogs for them and kind of starting with the basics like where did Jeep start? What's a Jeep badge of honor? What's a sway bar? That kind of stuff. So anyway, we put it out there. Hey, read our blog and all the answers to this TNT trivia we're going to have one of the nights. Um, well, we're going to have pick first, second, and third place. So you have to read our blog to get the answers. And so I had all these questions and I stumped everybody with my questions.
There you
Um,
go. What was the
yeah.
question?
So there were 10 questions. One was, what was the name of the Jeep that got an honorable Purple Heart in World War II? The answer is Old Faithful. The Marines named it Old Faithful. It got shot at, so they wanted to give it an honorable Purple Heart. One was,
Cool.
where did ducking start and what year? Do you know that answer?
It was during the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? It was 2020. I don't know
Yep.
where they were.
Canada.
It was in Canada.
Yep.
Yeah. I
Um,
only know that because I read the article about
right.
poor Allison, and they went into some of the history of that.
The Jeep color anvil. What did the Jeep creators base that off of?
Wow, this is some
Yeah.
tough trivia. What did they base it off of?
They were in a conference room, like, designing whatever year that came out, I can't remember, and they're like, "Oh, we need to have" how Jeep has to have unique colors, and so this guy goes, "Oh, there you go. Let's make it after that trash can sitting there in the corner."
So it's like epoxy paint on a trash can that they
Yeah.
based it. It shows because
Uh-huh.
that looks like it looks like
Right.
epoxy paint on an industrial trash can. That's funny that that's where it came from. I actually had a thought of painting the LJ that color. After there's a bunch of like I want to do tube fenders and the doors, of course, don't match anymore since I put the new ones on. And I had this idea that I would paint the whole thing anvil because I hate the silver. The silver is too common.
Yeah.
But anvil would
It's
look
a
pretty
it's
cool.
a pretty color.
Yeah.
What were some of the other questions? Oh, how many Jeep Badge of Honor trails are there? There's 68. What is the missing Jeep? I didn't word that properly, but it's a CJ4. There was only one made. It was the production vehicle, and then they never put it in production.
That
So
was the 4. No, that's not what I'm thinking of. There was a 6 that was lengthened like the 8,
yep.
right? But it was like a CJ5 base lengthened. Then there was
Mhm.
the CJ7 with the squared off door, and then the CJ8 scrambler, which had the lengthened bed like the LJ does, except with the squared off door. So yeah, the 4. I don't think I've ever seen the 4.
They just made one, and some guy they just gave it to one of the workers, and now we don't know where it is.
It's just gone. It's in
And
some landfill somewhere,
yes,
rusting away to pieces. The only one in existence, and he took it and plowed his farm with it until it fell into pieces.
right. Another question was, what was there was a special name for one of the DJ3As, and everyone thought it was the male Jeep, and I'm like, "No, it's the Surrey," and it was used on the resorts. It had those
Oh,
blue and white striped and pink and white striped tops, and they used the resorts got them to
oh, they used them like little people transporters.
right,
Yeah, like golf carts almost.
correct. And then the Scrambler, what it was the CJ8 or what was the designate for the Scrambler? What years was it made? And then the first Jeep, what were the first 3 names? And I think we did this on an episode. The Quad, the Ford Pygmy, the Quad something, and
Hmm.
the BRC, Bantam Reconnaissance. So anyway, yeah, and they were all they were all making fun of me because they're like, "We Jeep, we don't need to know all that stuff." So,
Yeah, some people don't care about the history of the vehicle. They just care
mhm,
about
just
the
wheeling.
capabilities of
Yeah,
today. Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So that was my great weekend. It was a good couple of days, 4 or
It's
5
cool.
days, yeah.
I
So
haven't I I haven't been able to go on a good like off-road outing in a while. I did that Jeep Enthusiast of Eastern PA spring ride. What was that in May? But that was all green trails. Like I really want to get out and get some
yeah.
decent trails under my tires.
I
Um,
mean, I think I would have enjoyed it more if I wasn't working it, and I could have, because then we were selling our swag, so we had to set up our table, and
mhm.
so
Yeah, it's a different feel. I've never worked an off-road event, obviously. I mean, I kind of do for the Jeep Jamboree, but I still get plenty of trail time in. But there's like work associated with it. But I
mhm,
get the same thing when I'm going to conferences for the day job, where it's like if I was an attendee, I would be having a lot more fun,
correct.
like going out and having some drinks with folks I haven't seen in a while, and going out and attending the different parties and get-togethers that different vendors are running. I can't really do that as a vendor because these are like I'm not
Right,
invited to those things, right? Because
right,
I'm a vendor.
correct.
So yeah, I'd imagine it's different working an off-road event, but similar concept, similar idea.
Alright, on to the news because I kinda took up a lot of time.
Sure. Oh yeah, we're almost at 9 o'clock already. Well, 9 o'clock my
Mm,
time.
yeah.
I still see the sun outside your window.
Oh, well, thank you for typing in all those notes.
Yeah, I tried
You
to
were
keep
taking
track of the different
notes
stuff
during
that you
my
were doing.
yeah,
Feel free to fill in anything that I missed. So if anybody wants a Nate's rundown of what Tammy just went through, it's in our show
yeah.
notes.
Very cool, thank you. Saved me. You do all the
Yeah,
work. I just, like, slide in and just
talk about
chit-chat.
things.
Yeah, you do Nate does all the work.
Speaking
I
of the
was just
work, I
reading
have to
yeah. I don't know if it
refresh
was
my
Needle
memory on what links
we
I
were
put
on
in here for the
Old
news.
Mountain Road. I don't think it was Needles Highway, but I could be wrong, when we zigzagged up to the Mount Rushmore. Um,
Video says the Crawl for the Cure event is mid-July.
mhm.
There you go. All
I think
right.
in
So
the
I grabbed a
news
I grabbed a couple of news articles. One of which is actually from our last show that we didn't have time for because we were too busy talking about my trip to
your
Bantam.
trip.
Yeah, yeah.
Your
You
trip
thought you
was
talked too long. I talked the whole episode.
yes, you did.
You left time. All right. So the first one I included is from a is it a news source blog? I don't know, called Ride Apart, and it's actually about a higher end off-road class dirt bike or motorcycle, right? From Ducati, right?
Hmm,
Ducati, I remember the name Ducati as a street bike. Apparently, they also do off-road bikes. But the reason I included it is because of the sentiment of this particular article. Of course, the article is about the bike, talks about all kinds of specs about the bike, and it looks like a pretty cool bike. It's probably not cheap. I didn't read it far enough to find out if they could tell you a price. I don't really see one here. But the idea like this, the start of the article goes into, we understand that you spent all this money on this bike, but it's really a shame if you do that and then just slap street tires on it and drive it down the highway, which apparently is a very common thing for folks to do with these bikes because they have a very unique look
Wow.
to them. I see them with there's BMW makes a it's more like an all-terrain bike than a dirt bike or an off-road bike. And I see that a lot where they just put on street tires and people drive them around and they put those big saddlebag things on the back, not bags, actually. They're like hard-sided cases. And I think they do it, one, because of the status factor that it's a BMW bike, and two, because it just looks unique, right? It looks different. But this article is basically like, you bought the thing, Ducati wants you to drive it off-road. Go drive it off-road. It's really a shame to not drive it off-road.
That sounds kind of familiar. I guess it's
Yeah.
a mall crawling Ducati.
Exactly. But really, I thought that sentiment alone aligned so much with our views that
Mm-hmm.
for this show that I had to include it. But if you're into sport bikes, or you're into, I guess not sport bikes, but all-terrain or off-road sport bikes, check out this article if you're interested in what Ducati has released. Let me
It's a
find the
really
name of
pretty
it
looking
here.
bike.
Ducati's Desert X Discovery.
Yes.
It is a really neat looking bike.
Yeah. And it's got like a little skid plate there.
Yeah, it's got like a
On the-
skid plate underneath where the
Yeah.
engine transmission is there. And
Uh-huh.
yeah,
How
pretty neat
cool
looking
is
bike.
that?
Probably ridiculously expensive
Oh,
with
I'm
the
sure.
name Ducati on it. So that was the first article. The next one is from
Ooh.
24/7 Wall Street.
24/7 Wall Street.
And I included this because I forgot. I don't know if I mentioned this in our last episode. I've been looking at trucks and large SUVs again because the transmission
Yes, you were saying the
in the
Cadillac,
Caddy is giving me.
right?
I have an uneasy feeling about it, and I haven't really been able to trace down exactly why yet. Maybe it's nothing, but it's got me thinking. Like, we're thinking in the fall we're going to trade in the Cadillac before something major goes wrong on something else. And this particular news article caught my eye, and
I
it's
hope it's not some of these or look. Ugh.
right. Well, the chances of me buying a brand new truck are slim to none.
Right.
But the title of this article is the 10 most fuel efficient 4x4 pickups today. And it starts with the Ford Ranger 4x4 at number 10.
Mhm.
And as you might expect, it goes all the way up to things like the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Silverado EV
All the EVs.
and the Rivian at the top of the list.
That is an ugly looking truck, I think.
What, the Rivian?
Yeah.
It's not as ugly as a Cybertruck.
Well, the Cybertruck's kind of cool, but it is it's just very plain. You know, it looks like some kid made it with a cardboard box.
Yeah, right.
Painted it silver.
Right. But I did come across another article that was talking about the Cybertrucks and some issues that they were having, but I didn't include that today. I'd have to go look it up again to remember what the details were. The Rivian has me intrigued, I have to be honest. I don't know that I would ever buy one, especially for the use case that I have. I'm not going to tow the Jeep around with a Rivian.
Right.
That seems really, I don't know, hypocritical.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't know what kind of range that would get, or if it could even tow the Jeep. I'm sure it probably could with those electric.
So I see the Tacoma's on there. You could have I wonder if the Tacoma can could tow your Jeep.
I don't know if a Tacoma could. Maybe. They're probably a little too small. I'd have to look at the tow rating. But numbers 1 through 4 are all electric vehicles. Yeah. There's the GMC Hummer EV. There's the Silverado EV. The Ford F-150 Lightning, and the Rivian. So I don't know. I feel like it's not fair to put gasoline vehicles on the same list as electric vehicles. But if you're in the market for a truck, you want a new truck, and you're curious about fuel economy, check out this article. A lot of the gasoline-powered full-size trucks get about what you'd expect, like 22 miles per gallon, which is still better than the older trucks, but it's not great when you compare it to commuter cars that are getting like 48 miles to a gallon.
So guess what my average miles per gallon was on this trip? I reset my little counter, and mind you, I'm like climbing up mountain hills
Mhm.
to get there. And on the way back, I was fighting those winds in South Dakota and Wyoming galore. It was awful. So
Yeah.
what would your guess be for my miles per gallon?
Am I going high or low?
I would go low. Oh, videos, you're totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Well, if we're saying low, I mean, like if you're surprised that it's lower, then I would say like 15, maybe.
Oh,
My
they're
gosh,
having a good time back
I don't
there.
know what that was. Lower still. I guess if you spend a significant amount of time off road, I know that my Jeep can get as little as like 2 miles to a gallon when I'm
Oh
in
no, it
four
wasn't
low.
that low.
But it doesn't rate it. It's just me like trying to
Yeah.
do back of the napkin math. Uh,
13.8.
okay. I guess that's
Yeah.
not so bad.
I mean, I was fighting winds on the way back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really tough.
The I'm always surprised the Cadillac gets like 13 towing,
Oh
which
wow.
everyone tells me is actually pretty good for the drivetrain that's in it.
Uh-huh.
So I will miss that if I have to. Although if I get a newer truck, it may be better. I don't know. 13 is not something to be proud of.
No, it's
But
not.
but towing, I don't know. Towing seemed like 13 wasn't so bad
Well,
for a
I'm
6.2 liter V8.
I'm not as aerodynamic as a cow. A cow has better aerodynamics than the boxy Wrangler.
That is true.
So,
That is true, and it was proven in a wind tunnel.
yes. Who would have ever thought to do, oh, let's do a cow.
Yeah. Let's see what the aerodynamics of a cow is.
I know.
All right, and
That meme like exploded all over the internet. I still see it.
well, I mean, it's a brick with a tent strapped to the back of it. Come
Yeah.
on,
Yep.
your Jeep is not a cow. A cow is actually like something of nature, and nature is usually more aerodynamic than a box with a tent.
Yeah.
All right, so our last article, and this one comes from like the irony department. It's from MSN.
The
And this was
irony
actually,
department.
yeah, this is from actually 2 weeks ago when we recorded. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, but it's too good for me to not talk about. First of all, we've talked about electric vehicles a number of times on this show. We've talked about gasoline. We've talked about off-road and how we think that fully electric vehicles are maybe not quite ready for off-road excursions yet because of the range and because
Mhm.
of the charging. Although that's getting there, right? Solar panels and whatnot, as that evolves and being able to charge vehicles, it kind of makes sense to like make that a long range vehicle that can recharge itself with the sun. But in the middle there are hybrid or plug-in hybrids, right?
Oh, is that what the PHEV
Yep.
means?
PHEV is plug-in hybrid electric vehicle.
Ah,
And
okay.
the best case scenario for a plug-in hybrid is you come home at night, you plug in your vehicle and it charges while you're asleep. And then the next morning when you go to work, you're running on full electric because it recharged itself off of probably a coal plant down the road. But regardless, it charged itself instead of using its gasoline engine off of your house electric,
But
right?
you couldn't use your air conditioner because you had
But
to
you couldn't
charge your
run your air
vehicle.
conditioner because there was too much draw.
Right.
I get there's a whole bunch of irony there, and that's why I said this comes from the irony department. But the article suggests that nobody is actually plugging them in when they get home.
Oh.
They're just using them like their car. Start it up in the morning, drive to work. Start it up and drive home, and then park it in the driveway, and then plug it in at night. And if you're not doing that, you're actually burning more fuel than the electric
Oh
equivalent, or
my
than the
god, you're
than the
kidding me.
gasoline equivalent of the same vehicle. So the Wrangler PHEV, of course, it has all that extra weight from batteries and whatnot, right? So you're
Yeah.
hauling around a larger, heavier vehicle, right? And yes, you're probably getting some charge into that battery by running the engine, but the vehicle will run on 100% on the engine when the battery is depleted, right? So if you're just driving around a big heavy battery that doesn't have any electricity in it, what are you actually doing
And all
to
these
improve
people
anything?
think they're, "Oh, I'm saving the environment. I have
And
this." Oh, Lord.
every I've mentioned that I've wheeled with some of the electric Wranglers, the 4XEs. Every time I've seen one, I'm like, "Oh, it's going to be quiet on the trail, right?" No, the engine's running. Um, so why is the engine running? I thought maybe when they're in 4 low or something that the engine always runs, and maybe they do. I don't know,
Mhm.
but I wonder if it's because these people have never plugged them in.
And they think they're being, like, so great. Yeah, videos just said the 4xe battery weighs about 300 pounds.
Right.
That's a lot of weight. That's more than my bumper.
I'd be curious what the weight difference is between not just the battery, but the whole vehicle. If you took a similarly equipped gasoline Wrangler and compare it to the same 4xe, like what's the actual weight difference? I'll have to try
Huh.
to look that up and see if I can find it. Or
So I
maybe videos
know
will look it up while we're talking. But
yeah. So I know when they came out with the JLs, they put a lot more aluminum
hmm
on them.
yeah, but I
Um,
mean, JL gasoline to JL
they'll
4xe.
right, and that's what you
What's
have to
what's the weight
compare.
difference?
Yeah.
Is it considerable, or is it just like having a big hefty friend sitting in the passenger seat? You
Uh-huh.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Huh.
Um, but yeah, I would suggest read the article because they go into a little more in depth. But yeah, if you're not plug it in, your plug-in hybrid. At least the Wrangler, they use the Wrangler as an example, probably because it's everybody's favorite thing to beat up when you're talking about
Oh, exactly.
fuel economy. Um, and maybe other models of electric vehicles are different and they get better charge out of that gasoline engine when even if you don't plug it in. I always thought that if you ran it on gasoline, it was charging the battery and the battery was running the vehicle. But apparently, if you're not plugging it in,
It's not
maybe
the
it is to
batteries.
some extent, but not enough that you're getting a true benefit out of it. All you're really doing is lugging around some big heavy batteries that gives you worse fuel economy.
That is the irony of that. You're right. It's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, it's quite ironic. So yeah, if you have a plug-in hybrid, good on you. Please plug it in.
Right. Don't wait, and they're more expensive too.
They are considerably.
Yeah.
4xe weighs about 800 to 1,000 pounds more than the 2.0 liter Wrangler, which makes sense because they have a 2.0 turbo uh, powering them. The 4xe and you have the little 4-cylinder 2.0
Mhm.
model of the JL. So
Hmm.
depending on configuration, yeah,
800 to 1,000 more pounds. That's a
that's kind
lot.
of what I was thinking in my head. I was thinking 1,000 pounds because I think I had looked this up, or we talked about it on a previous episode, and we had looked it up, or videos looked it up. I don't remember.
He could be he's gonna be our background
he's our
researcher.
he's our fact
Yeah,
checker.
fact checker. Yep.
So yeah, plug in your
Plug in your
plug-in hybrid.
PHEV.
Yeah, personally, I like the idea of a hybrid better, at least with our current technology, right? Because it's a happy medium. You get the benefits of electric when you have it, and if you run out of electric, you have gasoline to fall back on. I think
And it
that's a
would be
great.
kind of a good little, like for me, my Jeep is my daily driver, my
Mhm.
weekend warrior. And while I'm driving to and from work, I'll just use the electrical part. But then
Yeah,
when I go off-roading, I can, use the gas. So,
yeah,
but that's expensive car payments. I don't have car payments right now.
yeah.
So
That's a good place to be.
I'll stick with my Jeep. Oh,
Yeah,
I
the
did get
reason we're waiting for fall is because we're trying to get my trailer paid off so that
and
we
you
have one
wanna
less
yeah,
payment. Yeah.
you really need to wait until, like, maybe closer to November, December when they're trying to get rid of their stock.
That's a good point.
You could get some good deals
I
then.
wasn't thinking about timing on car dealership
Yeah,
years.
yeah. You should do that. Think about near November, December. They might give
I
you some good deals.
get myself a Christmas truck.
There you go. Maybe Christmas. So I forgot to tell you, I did get, some more dents and dings. and scrapes on my sliders, and then my rear bumper has a
But
huge
you
chunk
just
taken out.
painted those. Oh no, you didn't paint the sliders. You painted
The skid
the skid
plates.
plates.
Oh,
Did you ding up the
you know,
paint?
yeah, I'll go take a picture tomorrow. I didn't even look to see if I got any scrapes under there with that. So, yeah, that's all I'll have to do. I'll take pictures and share next time. Speaking of next time, do you have any thoughts on um, a topic?
Look, Tammy, I filled in the rest of the episode
I
guide.
know you did all. Nate did all the work. Nate does all the work all the time.
Tammy
Uh,
was off having a good time wheeling and being some kind of underwriter at
yeah,
at TNT.
service writer. Yeah.
Service
Oh,
writer, that's it,
yep.
not underwriter.
That's. I can't wait till that's over. Hopefully, Steve will be back next week. Um, he seems to be getting better. So
That's good. That's
did
good.
did we do an episode on recovery gear? I think we did. What you should
I
have.
thought we
I
did.
think we did. Yes, we did.
We'll have to look back. If we didn't, we could.
Yeah, because just talking about the tire repair kit, the
Mhm.
little glue thing, just made me think. Um, I think it would be good to do something on radios and CBs and stuff, but I don't know a whole lot about that.
Yeah, I could talk at a really high level. I don't have the deep understanding of radio.
Mhm.
Like I could talk about what the industry seems to be doing
Mhm.
and whatnot. And there's videos getting
Mhm.
real excited.
I know. Ooh, he loves radios.
So,
Yeah.
well,
Communication, I just honk. Honk, honk, stop,
yeah.
everybody. We got an issue. Honk, honk.
But it's so cheap nowadays to just get yourself a GMRS
Mhm.
handheld, keep it in your Jeep, then you don't have to honk.
Yeah, I just honk and wing it. At one point, he's gonna get upset and he is gonna kind of freak when I was on the trail. I'm like, "Oops, I didn't even turn on the CB radio until halfway through the trail."
Do you have a CB or no?
Or it's actually a GMRS. Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Don't ask
Yeah,
me what kind.
I was kind of curious if all these years you've been wheeling with no radio at all.
No, I had a handheld, just a regular CB handheld. At one point, I had this big, huge Cobra thing, and I
Mhm.
had it on above my mirror, my rearview
Mhm.
mirror. I hated it there because it blocked
Yeah.
the rearview mirror. I loved my handheld the best.
Bigger CBs mounted up there. I know exactly the mount you're
Yeah.
talking about because I had it in my two-door JK,
Uh-huh.
and I had a Cobra CB on it, and it is big and bulky.
It's just so hard to find a place that's not in everybody's way,
Mhm.
or it's not in your way, or where you want it to be able to reach it easily.
I'm not sure why, but I'm a big fan of built-in radio in a vehicle. Like I want it built into the vehicle, not a handheld. And I don't know why I think that way. Like I don't have a good reason. It's just the way I've always done
Uh-huh.
it. So I actually carry two radios with me. Well, three technically. I have the CB that is built into the dash.
Hmm.
I had taken the HVAC controls and moved them and put my CB in the dash of the TJ right under the stereo. And then everybody moved to GMRS.
And you're like,
So it's there and
"No!"
it's been turned off for years. I don't know if it even still works. It probably does. But I keep the mic in the center console if I ever needed to use it. There it is. And then I have a Midland
Oh,
with a base station in it
I
that's
had a
built into
Midland.
the Jeep, right? And the mic for that is right on the
Mhm.
dash, and I can grab that and use it. And then I carry my handhelds with me
Oh,
in case I
yes.
need to get out of the Jeep and spot somebody.
Yes.
So
Ta
it's like, why don't I
um,
just carry these and use them as radios? I don't know. For some reason, I think it's better, but I
I
can't
think when
actually
you're
articulate why.
well, I think when you're, like, at Roush Creek, it's not like you guys are gonna get miles apart.
Yeah.
Um, so that worked really well. I had a Midland handheld, and I really liked it. Um, I guess it depends on your use, and,
Yeah.
there's a lot of p
Video
go
says that a mobile radio, and I think he means the built-in that I was just talking about, are far more powerful than handhelds. And he's
Mhm.
probably right. But if everybody else in the group has the handhelds, they'll be able to hear me, but I can't hear them, right? Because their radios aren't powerful enough. And to be honest, I've never really had a problem with the GMRS radios, as long as the group doesn't get too big. CB, I always had trouble just getting from the back of the pack to the front. I don't know how truck drivers would do it over miles like they claim they could.
Right.
So anyway, I think we just had an episode about comms. There we go. We're done.
We can add that. Yeah, and
All
sometimes,
right.
you know, you don't want to get too technical.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we will figure out what our next show is going to be about. Thanks for tuning in. If you watched us live or watch us on YouTube or listen to us audio only, we thank you for checking us out. If you want to find us, just look for the Off-Road Insiders on social media. Go to offroadinsiders.com to find pretty much anywhere you might want to find us. You can find me at swbcrawler.com. And how about you, Tammy?
I'm at jeepmama.com. And
Cool.
I tested out my Maxa knife, doing some.
Oh, right.
So I'm going to have a video on that, and stay tuned for that. But y'all have a great 4th of July. Be safe out there.
Yeah. Don't lose any fingers.
No, we'll see you July.
And that's a long break.
I know. I don't know why. July 15th will be our next show. You can join us live, folks, on YouTube, July 15th. Check us out. You can chat in the chat room.
Yeah. Join videos. He was very alone tonight.
He was.
All right, folks. We will catch you next time. Have a safe and happy 4th of July. And tune in 2 weeks.